Welcome to Framework, the podcast that makes the NIST cybersecurity framework practical, engaging, and accessible. Whether you're a cybersecurity professional, business leader, or simply curious about how organizations defend against cyber threats, this series is for you. This podcast is inspired by a comprehensive guide to the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0, a best-selling resource written by cybersecurity expert Dr. Jason Edwards and trusted by professionals worldwide. In each episode, we'll leverage a few insights from Jason's extensive book to dive deep into CSF 2.0, unpacking every function, category, and subcategory with real-world applications you can immediately use. If you're enjoying this episode and want to learn more, head over to cyberauthor.me to grab your copy of the book and access additional resources to enhance your cybersecurity journey. You can also visit baremetalcyber.com, where over 2 million people last year explored expert insights, articles, and practical tools across a wide range of cybersecurity topics. DE.CM-03, Tracking Personnel and Technology Usage. DE.CM-03 ensures that organizations continuously track personnel activities and technology usage to detect, analyze, and respond to potential security threats, unauthorized access, or policy violations. This subcategory belongs to the Detect function within the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework, version 2.0, emphasizing that monitoring how employees, contractors, and third parties interact with technology assets is critical for identifying insider threats, preventing data leaks, and maintaining security compliance. Without effective personnel and technology tracking, organizations risk unauthorized access to sensitive systems, undetected malicious activity, and regulatory noncompliance due to lack of accountability over asset usage. By implementing structured tracking of personnel and technology usage, organizations ensure that user actions, device access, and system interactions are continuously monitored for anomalies that could indicate security risks. A well-defined monitoring framework enables organizations to detect unauthorized access attempts, enforce security policies, and generate real-time alerts on suspicious behavior. Organizations that adopt user behavior analytics, UBA, integrate privileged access management, PAM, and deploy endpoint detection and response, EDR, solutions, improve their ability to detect insider threats, prevent policy violations, and enforce security governance across digital and physical assets. Multiple stakeholders play a role in personnel and technology tracking. Security Operations Center SOC analysts and cybersecurity managers are responsible for deploying monitoring tools, analyzing usage patterns, and responding to detected threats. Human resources and compliance teams ensure that user activity tracking aligns with regulatory requirements, employee privacy laws, and corporate security policies. IT administrators and system owners play a critical role in managing user access rights, implementing logging mechanisms, and enforcing endpoint monitoring policies to protect sensitive systems and data. Effective tracking of personnel and technology usage is implemented through identity and access management, IAM, endpoint monitoring, and automated security event analysis. This includes logging all user activities on corporate systems, monitoring access to sensitive data, and enforcing policies that detect unauthorized usage of devices or cloud services. Organizations that fail to implement structured personnel and technology monitoring solutions risk data breaches due to undetected insider threats, compliance violations resulting from unmonitored system access, and reputational damage caused by unauthorized misuse of company assets. Several key terms define personnel and technology tracking and its role in cybersecurity governance. User Behavior Analytics, UBA, ensures that organizations analyze normal user activity patterns to detect deviations that may indicate malicious intent or policy violations. Privileged Access Management, PAM, ensures that organizations monitor and control elevated access permissions to prevent unauthorized changes to critical systems. Endpoint Detection and Response, EDR, ensures that organizations track device activity to detect malware infections, unauthorized software usage, or suspicious system modifications. Identity and Access Management, IAM, ensures that organizations enforce authentication and authorization policies to limit access to sensitive data based on user roles. Security Information and Event Management (SIEM) ensures that organizations centralize and analyze security logs to detect, correlate, and respond to unusual user or device activity. Challenges in tracking personnel and technology usage often lead to inconsistent monitoring, excessive data collection, and difficulties in balancing security with employee privacy. One common issue is failure to monitor privileged accounts, where organizations grant broad administrative access but lack oversight on how privileged users interact with critical systems. Another issue is lack of integration between monitoring tools, where organizations deploy multiple security solutions but fail to correlate data between identity management, endpoint tracking, and network activity logs. Some organizations mistakenly believe that monitoring employees' technology usage is only necessary for regulatory compliance, without recognizing that real-time tracking is essential for proactive threat detection and operational security. When organizations implement structured personnel and technology tracking frameworks, they enhance visibility into user behavior, improve threat detection capabilities, and strengthen compliance with access control policies. A structured monitoring model ensures that security teams continuously refine detection techniques, business leadership prioritizes access management investments, and IT security teams integrate automated tracking into ongoing cybersecurity operations. Organizations that adopt AI-driven behavioral analytics, enforce multi-factor authentication (MFA) for privileged access, and deploy continuous endpoint monitoring develop a comprehensive security strategy that strengthens resilience against insider threats, unauthorized data access, and misuse of technology resources. Organizations that fail to track personnel and technology usage face serious security, operational, and compliance risks. Without structured monitoring, businesses risk insider threats, unauthorized data exfiltration, and undetected malicious activity by employees or external contractors. A common issue is unrestricted access to sensitive systems, where organizations fail to enforce access controls, allowing users to move laterally across networks and access information beyond their job role. Another major challenge is lack of real-time monitoring, where organizations log user activity but do not actively analyze it for suspicious behavior, allowing threats to persist undetected. By implementing structured personnel and technology tracking, organizations ensure that all system interactions, access events, and technology usage patterns are continuously monitored to detect policy violations, unauthorized modifications, and potential security incidents. A well-defined monitoring framework integrates identity governance, endpoint security, and behavioral analytics to detect abnormal activity. Organizations that deploy security information and event management (SIEM) tools enforce least privilege access and implement real-time anomaly detection, improve their ability to prevent account misuse, detect compromised credentials, and mitigate the risks associated with insider threats. At the partial tier, organizations lack structured personnel and technology monitoring, leading to limited oversight and increased vulnerability to insider threats and unauthorized access. Security tracking is reactive, with logs only reviewed after a security incident occurs. A small business at this level may allow employees to use shared accounts without tracking login activity, making it impossible to attribute actions to specific users in the event of a breach. At the risk-informed tier, organizations begin to establish formal personnel and technology tracking policies, ensuring that user activity is logged and analyzed periodically. However, monitoring may still be limited, with a focus on compliance reporting rather than proactive security enforcement. A mid-sized healthcare provider at this level may use identity and access management (IAM) solutions to log access to patient records, but lack automated alerts for detecting unauthorized access attempts, leaving data vulnerable to improper use. At the repeatable tier, organizations implement a fully structured personnel and technology tracking framework, ensuring that all user and device activity is continuously monitored, analyzed, and correlated with security alerts. Security governance is formalized, with leadership actively involved in defining monitoring policies, enforcing behavioral analytics, and ensuring compliance with industry regulations. A multinational financial institution at this stage may integrate user behavior analytics with privileged access management (PAM), ensuring that any anomalous activity by high-risk accounts triggers real-time investigation and response. At the adaptive tier, organizations employ AI-driven user activity monitoring, dynamic risk-based authentication, and automated response mechanisms for unauthorized behavior to continuously assess security risks and refine personnel tracking strategies. Personnel and technology monitoring is fully integrated into enterprise cybersecurity governance, ensuring that organizations detect and mitigate user-based security risks before they escalate. A global technology provider at this level may use AI-powered analytics to detect behavioral anomalies in employee activity, automatically revoke access privileges if unusual patterns are detected, and enforce continuous authentication for high-risk accounts. Tracking personnel and technology usage aligns with multiple controls in the National Institute of Standards and Technology, Special Publication 800-53, ensuring that organizations implement structured monitoring models and proactive threat detection strategies. One key control is AC-2, account management, which requires organizations to track user accounts, enforce access policies, and monitor activity for suspicious behavior. A government contractor implementing this control may use automated identity lifecycle management to ensure that inactive accounts are promptly deactivated, preventing unauthorized access by former employees. Another key control is AU-12, audit log monitoring, which mandates that organizations regularly review and analyze system activity logs to detect unauthorized access, policy violations, and insider threats. A financial services firm implementing this control may use AI-powered log analysis tools to detect patterns of fraudulent behavior, such as repeated login attempts from unusual locations, and trigger automated security responses. Tracking personnel and technology usage also aligns with IA-5 authenticator management, which requires organizations to enforce secure authentication mechanisms, track authenticator usage, and monitor login activity to detect compromised credentials. This control ensures that organizations implement strong authentication policies, track when and where users log in, and flag abnormal authentication attempts for further investigation. A multinational cloud service provider implementing this control may use multi-factor authentication, MFA, dynamic risk-based authentication, and automated login monitoring to detect credential misuse and prevent unauthorized access. These controls can be adapted based on organizational size, industry, and cybersecurity maturity. A small business may implement basic access tracking, ensuring that user logins are monitored through built-in system logs and alerts are triggered for multiple failed login attempts. A large enterprise may deploy comprehensive user behavior analytics, AI-driven anomaly detection, and continuous authentication monitoring to ensure that personnel and technology usage tracking policies are dynamically refined based on real-time risk assessments. Organizations in highly regulated industries such as finance, healthcare, and government contracting may require legally mandated identity tracking, compliance-driven security audits, and strict authentication governance to prevent unauthorized access. Auditors assess an organization's ability to track personnel and technology usage by reviewing whether structured, documented, and continuously enforced security monitoring frameworks are in place. They evaluate whether organizations implement automated identity tracking, enforce access control policies, and integrate real-time usage monitoring into enterprise-wide security operations. If an organization fails to track personnel and technology effectively, auditors may issue findings highlighting gaps in access control oversight, weak alignment between usage tracking policies and regulatory compliance requirements, and failure to integrate structured monitoring strategies into enterprise security frameworks. To verify compliance, auditors seek specific types of evidence: identity and access management policy documentation and structured login activity reports demonstrate that organizations formally define and enforce personnel tracking standards. Access control logs and security incident records provide insights into whether organizations proactively monitor user interactions and detect unauthorized attempts to access sensitive systems. Automated user behavior analytics reports and predictive access control analytics show whether organizations effectively track, monitor, and refine personnel tracking strategies using real-world risk assessments and adaptive security controls. A compliance success scenario could involve a global financial institution that undergoes an audit and provides evidence that user activity monitoring strategies are fully integrated into enterprise cybersecurity governance, ensuring that all personnel activity is continuously tracked, security events are dynamically analyzed, and identity governance policies are enforced consistently across all platforms. Auditors confirm that user activity tracking policies are systematically enforced, access control mechanisms are dynamically adjusted based on evolving threats, and enterprise-wide cybersecurity governance frameworks align with structured identity and technology monitoring requirements. In contrast, an organization that fails to implement structured personnel monitoring, neglects real-time access tracking, or lacks formalized security event correlation workflows may receive audit findings for poor visibility into user activity, weak response capabilities, and failure to align personnel tracking strategies with regulatory compliance mandates. Organizations face multiple barriers in ensuring that personnel and technology usage tracking remains continuous and effective. One major challenge is balancing security monitoring with user privacy, where organizations must track user activity for security purposes while complying with data protection laws and privacy regulations. Another challenge is failure to integrate identity tracking with behavioral analytics, where organizations log user activity but do not leverage AI-driven monitoring to detect abnormal behavior patterns that could indicate insider threats. A final challenge is excessive false positives in security alerts, where organizations generate too many activity alerts, overwhelming security teams and making it difficult to identify real threats. Organizations can overcome these barriers by developing structured personnel and technology monitoring frameworks, ensuring that identity tracking policies remain continuously optimized, and integrating real-time behavioral analytics models into enterprise-wide cybersecurity governance strategies. Investing in AI-driven identity governance, predictive user behavior analytics, and continuous authentication risk scoring ensures that organizations dynamically assess, monitor, and refine personnel tracking strategies in real time. Standardizing personnel security governance methodologies across departments, subsidiaries, and external business partners ensures that usage tracking policies are consistently applied, reducing exposure to unauthorized user activity and strengthening enterprise-wide security resilience. By embedding personnel and technology usage monitoring strategies into enterprise cybersecurity governance frameworks, organizations enhance access, visibility, improve regulatory compliance, and ensure sustainable identity management processes across evolving cyber risk landscapes. That wraps up today's discussion on framework. Don't stop here. Head over to cyberauthor.me to explore more cybersecurity topics and discover a best-selling book covering NIST and other critical cyber frameworks. Please like, rate, and review this episode on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, remember that knowledge is power.